Welcome back. Today we are jumping into some additional forms that you may use when you are listing a property. So you've got your listing ready to go and you have a buyer, right? Or the seller has a buyer. So this turns into a little bit of a different type of listing. There's an agreement or an addendum called a one-time listing, and you utilize this different situations, different scenarios. It may be that you had already contacted the seller and they've already agreed to utilize you as their listing agent, but now you have a buyer before you were able to get it marketed. Or the seller was talking to the neighbor and their daughter wanted to buy the house, or whatever the situation is. There's too many different scenarios that could arise. If you have a question about the use of the one-time listing addendum, just come see me, talk to Tina or Pam. Any of us can help you with this for sure, and the different scenarios that may present themselves to utilize this document. But basically, if that's the case, you have an agreement with the seller or you're entering into an agreement with the seller and there's a buyer maybe verbally established, then you want to get this form completed. So you date it, and again, this is going to be attached to the listing agreement that you've already have in place or that you're just getting into place. Usually these are dated the same day. And then you've got this blank here. This is the buyer's name. So basically, the listing is only going to be sold to this buyer. It's not going to be marketed for other buyers. You can still put a for sale sign, you can still have the open house, but the seller is listing the property with you specifically for this buyer. And all other provisions in the agreement, as identified here in number 4, remain the same. The full listing agreement must be attached. The seller signs and the listing agent signs, and then I have to sign as the managing broker. Sometimes it may be that you have the buyer and you've approached a for sale by owner, or you've approached somebody who didn't even have their house on the market, but maybe the buyer knew or you knew they were thinking about selling. Sometimes this form is utilized in that instance also. We'll get into that discussion another day, but this can be an addition to your listing agreement, the addendum for one-time listing, but it identifies one specific buyer as being the one to purchase the home. Okay, so that is that form. Next, we're going to look at the listing amendment. So say you have a listing in place and the seller decides they want to reduce the price by a couple of $1,000s. So say you have it listed at $120,000 and they want to drop it to $118,000. You fill in the MLS number here, you put the name of the seller here, the property address on this line, and then price is changed from say $120,000 to $118,000. The expiration date, we're not messing with that in this example, so you would put N/A, other terms that change, N/A. The seller signs, and then you don't sign this form, but you do need to make sure I sign this form, because this is changing the listing agreement that the seller has with Keller Williams Marquis. And so I have to sign as the representative of Keller Williams Marquis. So other reasons to use this form, if you get to the end of your listing date period, say the listing was going to expire, don't wait till that expiration date. Be watching that, and at least 2 weeks before, contact your seller and say, have that conversation. The listing's going to expire in a couple of weeks. I want to hit that head on. We've had quite a bit of activity. I'd really appreciate the opportunity to continue marketing the property. I believe we can get it sold. And don't be dishonest in your communication, but we can work on scripts to help you with those conversations if and when it comes to that point. In this current market, that's not a conversation we're having very much, but I'm sure that once the shift comes in the market, we may have that discussion more frequently. So if that would be the case, say the price is staying the same, there would be N/A in these blanks, then change the date, say it expires July 20th, and so you would put July 20th here in the year, and then extend it, say 2 months. So take it out to September 20th in the year. And then N/A here, seller sign, and then I sign as managing broker. Sometimes there may be a term within the listing agreement that changes. So maybe it's something to do with the commission. Maybe it could be any number of things. But whatever the term is that may be changing, and the price and the expiration date are staying the same, then you would put N/A in the price and the dates, and then you would explain the term that changes in the box here. Again, sellers would sign, and then I sign as designated managing broker. So that's the listing amendment form that may be used from time to time. Sometimes when there is a disagreement in the service you provide, or the seller isn't providing the services that they're supposed to provide, and it's a mutual decision between you, your client, and Keller Williams Marquis to terminate the listing and sever any relationship. In that event, this is the form that we complete. That's the listing termination agreement. And so the agreement is referring to the listing agreement between the parties. This is the date the listing was signed, and then the property address, the MLS number, the seller signs, and then the managing broker signs. So I would sign that form. In this agreement, the seller is not obligated to pay the broker a commission and may contract with any other broker for listing services. So if you recall, in the commission paragraph in the listing agreement, there is that little blank that we talked about filling in, and I had said you could put in 30 or 60 or 90 days. I've even seen agents put 120 or 180 days, and how that protects the listing agent in the payment of commission past the termination or past the expiration of the listing date, if the buyer saw the house while it was listed under your listing agreement. Okay, the listing termination nullifies that. There are no more days to count. So the termination is a complete sever of any relationship between Keller Williams Marquis and that seller. Now there's another form called the listing withdrawal. The listing withdrawal pulls the listing off of Maris and out of public marketing, but the seller would still be obligated to pay Keller Williams Marquis, and thus you, the commission that was agreed upon if the property is sold within the marketing dates, or if the property was shown to somebody prior to the listing expiring, and that date, 30, 60, 90 days, whatever is put in that blank, if the property is shown prior to, and then contract is written within the dates, then the commission does still need to be paid out. So with the listing withdrawal, it's dated, the date the listing was signed, the property address, the Maris MLS listing number, the seller's sign-in date, and then I sign as managing broker with the agreement. So again, the seller would be obligated to pay the commission based on the last listed price should the property be sold prior to the expiration of the marketing period, even though it's withdrawn. So that's the difference between the termination and the withdrawal.